you see the design of the aliens and you see the physicality of the body. And so you think, okay, how is this thing going to make a noise? Okay, it's got a big resonating chamber. What if inside these aliens, two bones were together and they resonated? That was, in my mind, where the sounds were kind of coming from in the first instance, because we couldn't see a mouth.
It's something quite unique. It's physical, but it's not generated by any means that is very typical of something that lives on our planet. So I had to get a bit creative.
We were dealing straight with editorial and with Denny. One of the best things he said was that he wanted the aliens to sound sacred.
Very intimidating, but at the same time very intelligent and very graceful, rather than just monstrous.
And that he wanted this sacred sort of feeling to come from them. And, it was really cool thinking about that, because, you sort of think of whether it's a choir sort of singing in a reverberant space, or an organ, the way the deep notes sort of, resound in a room, or even being in a forest and hearing a bird in the distance. And so we took those sort of notes, and applied that to the alien vocals. The direction that they gave us, that was the thing that resonated in my head the whole time, was sacred.
You don't use stock footage when you're filming a feature film or a project, and so you don't use stock sound. We try and record as much as we can fresh and original.
Shell and I actually went into the forest all around New Zealand, around the North Island, and recorded the kokako, which is a very rare bird in New Zealand, and we hiked up a mountain 3 days to try and find this bird. And so we got that, and we got tuis, which are really beautiful as well, native New Zealand birds, pitched down very, very low, and they are a lot of the alien vocals.
I also did a bagpipe record, which was really interesting because I had no idea how complex an instrument they are and how you can take them apart and use any different part of them to make a sound. So I was just sort of getting him to squeeze the bag and blowing air through each of the different pipes and stuff. And also Maori instruments like the puterino and didgeridoos too. I played around with that. Not so much making sounds with it as just breathing through it.
We got rice paper that you make spring rolls out of, and we made this big lung out of it that could breathe, and that became some of the breath with liquid and water in it to try and make the alien's breath come to life. A very odd thing to do.
You'd fill it up with water again and start blowing through the straw, and it would start making this new sound. It's like, the holes, it's ripping apart, but now it sounds even better. It's degrading. And so we had this palette of breaths from this rice paper lung.
The moment I like best is the sound that Shell made. It was a mixture of playing some of the tui with some camel recording that we had, gurgly sound that they make, and she made it into quite a raspy sort of a sound, and it's actually my favourite sound of the whole thing is the sound that she made.
I think those are their names.
Abbott and Costello were our two heptapods, and we tried to differentiate between the two, with one being slightly deeper and one being more high-pitched. One of them had more sort of a chuffing, more of these clicky pops than the other one did as well. And one of them had more deep sort of throbbing sort of sounds. So you kind of can visually see that they are different. The sound is very slight, but there are differences between the two.
Communication. There's a lot of level of communication in the film between humans and heptapods, between humans through radios, between humans through television, through Skype, through all devices that we know today. We really wanted to make those communications really, truly believable. Today, in Sound World, we use a lot of plugins that everybody knows to create the sound that's coming from a phone, from something like that.
You don't need to worry.
They work fine, but we really wanted something original. And we decided to buy and rent real devices. So what we did basically with different devices and radio, we sent the voice of a character into the devices. The devices were sending the signal through waves to the other devices, then recorded from the speakers through a microphone, instead of using plugins in your computer, because we had to redo every single lines on their radio communications. We did the same with all TVs, all computers, all Skype. It was a very long process, but the result is astonishing. It's so fascinating because you are doing the real stuff.
Each of these things, we sampled them as impulse responses in Altiverb to be able to change those lines in final mix later on. It was a lot of effort, but I mean, it worked when we got line changes. It was all well labeled, and we knew which device we were using for that specific line. And so we had all those inactive tracks in the Pro Tools session, each with their own presets and of harmonics and impulse response, EQ and compressors and everything to match what was recorded. And we just had to drop it there, commit, using the Pro Tools commit to easily get a bounce of it, and then reinserted it, and it matched. It was a lot of work, but it gave colors that we would not have necessarily aimed for using only the presets that were available in plugins.
We had a conversation about speakerphone, which is a fantastic plugs for a lot of device communication that everybody uses. And one day I remember coming here, I discovered the tool, and it was like exciting and everything, using it. And Bernard said, I hate it. It sounds the same. And I said, no, it's good. It's going to be a conversation. And Bernard said, I'm going to create myself. He's right, we have to go back to those things,
The helicopter scene where the two characters meet in the helicopter is all production sound from the real helicopter communication tool that Claude Lahaye chipped in.
And we tried to do something different, but never worked.
we tried to either mix, the boom to it, and that was another way of using readily available, real-sounding things instead of recreating. It works, let's keep it. Why reinvent stuff if it exists?
One of the most important films in the history of sound design is The Conversation by Coppola in the 70s. And it's only about that. It's why this film really shocked the people on such a good way. It's like all those voices are going through devices. When the first scene, you see those characters and you see like this microphone trying to reach them, and you hear all those voices. Oh my goodness. So it's coming back to a very old culture of just voices. And it's just beautiful.
What about me?
You'll see.
Not if I knew more. You're supposed to tease me, give me hints, make me guess,
The idea of not having artificial sound for everything surrounding the heptapods was very important. We never had any kind of electronic sound, not machines and stuff or engine sound. We wanted something completely natural sound, organic sound, I will say. There is kind of a weird wind sound surrounding the shell. It's like there is tension, but these are pure wind sound that we have just processed. They really process those winds we cannot find in natural world, but their sources are natural. And when the shells move, it's made of rock and earthquakes and ice. I think we can really feel in the film that the texture of the sound, the scale of the sound, the range of the sound is really beautiful because these are coming from real textures. Of course, the birds was part of the script. When they arrive to the shell, they do like miners go to the mine with a little bird to see if there's enough oxygen. And the bird is there singing. And the great idea was to bring back that bird to the nightmare scene.
I mean, I've had a few dreams, but I don't.
When the sound of the birds is coming closer, and then we see that big heptapod. The bird was there as a very sensitive moment of mixing animals and real and unreal.
To go more on the geeky side of things, when Louise Banks first comes out of the tent, she's overwhelmed. They are all overwhelmed. She's a university teacher, and then it suddenly becomes in the middle of an army base and going to meet aliens. And she's wearing this huge orange suit with breathing apparatus and stuff, and surrounded by helicopters. So it's completely overwhelming, and we really wanted to get that feeling out. And the French Foley team did some great impulse response of the actual hazmat suit. So what we did for that scene is we mixed it as if it would have been a full mix, standard perspective, and I just put some altiverbs on the main master of everything and just went wet dry into the thing. So the whole sound of it just sounded as if you're in this bubble, and with her breathing really up front, you really like kind of have this claustrophobic, completely blurred vision, and that's also visually what we get from her POV sometimes, and blurred sound of what's happening around her. And that tool it was amazing to create this kind of sound effect using the whole mix of the whole track, just blending it completely, messing it up completely using that.
It was
tool.
really exciting.
It was really fun.
Just a cool moment.
The suits are clumsy at first, but you get used to them. Load up in a second vehicle.